real interesting question because it is pragmatic and it's front of mind for senior leaders of all the organizations that are entrusting marketing organizations to build a brand and deliver incremental value over time. One of the first traps, I think, is that simply implementing and launching a loyalty program is sufficient. While it takes a lot of work to get the thing in place, that, once you've done it, it's done, right? And so I'll call that sort of the set it and forget it kind of mindset. I love this quote that a fool with a tool is still a fool. In my mind, you want to be ahead of that. Once someone's gone, it's really, really hard to get them back. The real magic is being out in front of that and preventing people from getting to that point to where they start slipping. All marketing is measurable. And if you are doing marketing and claiming that it's not measurable, then you're not doing marketing. You're just simply...
Hey everyone, welcome. We have got really interesting session lined up for today. I'm excited to introduce Woody. Now, Woody is the founder of Next Level Growth Strategies, and honestly, that name says it all. He helps real brands, turn all that data that they are sitting on into an actual money making machine or dollars. He does this through smarter CRM loyalty programs that actually work and marketing that isn't just fluff but giving an actual results. And get this, Woody's been around the block. He's worked with some big names, Blockbusters, Payless, American Century, Investment, helping them do some serious data-driven transformation. So if you are like a lot of people and you are struggling with how to fix your loyalty program, maybe you are wondering how to make your CRM actually drive revenue, and even if you're trying to figure out how to use AI and analytics without getting lost in all the hype, well, this is the session for you to be part of. And seriously, Wood is going to be breaking down some real world actionable strategies that you can start using today. So stick around and you're not going to want to miss this. Welcome, Woody. Before I move forward, right, I would love to start with the core topic of this session, which is more on data and engagement.
Sure.
First of all, with third-party cookies being fading away, right? Because now cookies are not something which brands are more relying on, right? A lot of brands are feeling the pressure to rebuild their data strategies. They know that they want to keep up that personalization going on, right? Avoid those rising acquisition cost, and just to keep sure that they are up with the competition. And you have been bright in this, helping brands make that move to first party and zero party data. If you have to give senior leaders a starting point, what are those first steps they should take in order to build a solid future-proof data strategy?
Chintan, thank you for inviting me and looking forward to our conversation today. So, this is one of those questions that many leaders struggle with. And in my mind, it's really about future-proofing the brand. And most successful brands in the future will deeply understand their customers. And this is going to come through the data that they collect and the data that is exchanged in a mutually benefit relationship. And the end in mind is to create win-win or very valuable and useful experiences for the customer, right? So it really has to start with this compelling brand strategy. And ultimately, your data strategy needs to support the brand strategy and not the other way around. So future-proofing the brand really is going to involve continually identifying opportunities to provide new value for your customers and prospective customers in the future. And brands also need to be very, very transparent. They need to be real brands. And the magic of becoming a real brand is trust and having this earned trust that is built over time as a result of consistently and reliably delivering value for your customer. And the data strategy needs to be predicated and built upon that foundation of consumer trust. Now, third-party cookies are eventually going to go away. Google has sort of, stepped back from that, and, they don't have a definitive date as to when that's going to go away. But, my career has been working with, I'll call, zero party and first party data. And for those in the audience that aren't familiar with the difference between the two, zero party data are pieces of information that the consumer or customer provides to you willingly in exchange for some perceived future value. All right. So I might give you the information about my birth date in order to maybe receive a birthday reward or receive something for my birthday. Back when I was with Blockbuster, for example, we built an algorithm that allowed us to help customers find videos that they would like. And so the exchange of information was about them telling us what their favorite videos were or their favorite movies were. And we would understand by genre and by actor and, things like that. And, we had a lot of customers shared with us willingly that allowed us to then provide them with recommendations. Well, you might like this movie. So we would know based on, all of the historical behavioral information that we had about these customers, what in fact they have read in from us in the past. And as a result of them then exchanging more information with us that they shared on their own through the game that we had, they then were provided a service that allowed them to understand, well, here's a wish list that you might want to put together. So the next time that you want to see a horror movie or the next time you want to see a comedy, here are 2 or 3 that you might want to put on the top of your list. And so the end of mind there is really about delivering, value to the customer. And value comes in a lot of different shapes and a lot of different sizes, but at the end of the day, everybody realizes that time is valuable. And if you can save people time, save people money, provide them with confidence in their purchases and their experiences, ultimately you're creating that long-term relationship. And so, looping back to, the data strategy needs to be predicated all on ensuring that you do not violate the consumer trust. You need to secure your information. It needs to be used in a very mutually beneficial and trusted way. And in no way, shape, or form can the brand ever violate that trust. Once you do, right, it takes forever to build trust and to build a reputation and to build a brand, and you can ruin it in seconds, right? And so that's the thing that organizations and leaders need to keep in mind is that, it's a long game, and if you are looking at building a terrific brand, a successful brand for the future, you need to have that comprehensive brand strategy with the customer in the middle. And every decision that you make needs to have the customer's benefit and the creation of new value for that customer in mind.
Got it. So you definitely mentioned some good pointers where data studies should drive your brand strategy and not vice versa. And definitely being aware of both zero party and first party data, how you can make the most out of it for a mutual benefit for both the subscriber and also to the brand.
Absolutely.
Moving forward, right, as the world is moving towards AI, right, although the adaptation is definitely going to give us that or resonate the progress, but CRM isn't standing still, right? CRM is getting the AI adoption, right? They are trying to have these features which are AI driven or AI enabled or AI assisted, right?
Sure.
And brands that aren't adapting are at risk losing out on those AI efficiencies, right? And not just falling back, but just making sure that they are not able to get the best out of their CRM platform. What do you see as the big change coming to CRM in the next few years? And more importantly, what can brands do today to get ready for those shifts and changes?
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? Because I've been a part of the quote unquote CRM space for the better part of 30 to 35 years. And, CRM means different things to different people, right? In the old days, CRM, customer relationship marketing, was really sort of a, kind of a mass marketing kind of a analytics and communications platform that allowed us to speak to millions of customers, either through direct mail, then eventually through email and SMS and app push, et cetera, over time. And so, in some schools, the M is marketing, and those are synonymous with platforms such as, like Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Braze or Zeta has a great email platform, right? So, there's that school of thought with respect to CRM. Another school of thought with respect to CRM is what is more commonly thought of is sort of management of the sales force, right? And understanding sort of that the customer life cycle from prospect to customer to evangelist. And then, unfortunately, over time, you have customers that lapse and churn out. But what I think ultimately is going to happen is AI, when adopted in a smart and thoughtful way, will ultimately allow brands and marketers to become more effective, more efficient, and more relevant to their customers, right? The algorithms in AI are becoming better in terms of how they work, kind of in a stacked or layered manner, and they allow you to basically understand kind of where things are going, and they have the ability to provide contextual insights about kind of moments of truth for the customers. And I think ultimately brands are going to, again, if you aren't pursuing AI for the sake of pursuing AI because all the other cool kids are doing it, right? If you're actually doing it because you're trying to ultimately create a better experience and build a better brand, then I think those are the organizations that will be ultimately most successful. But I think the thing that's important to keep in mind is AI is strictly a tool, right? And I love this quote that, a fool with a tool is still a fool. And, you need to start with real pragmatic and practical business questions. You need to have business problems that you're trying to solve, and you need to, test your way into, proving out that this is something that, when adopted, will allow you to become more effective and allow you to scale in a more efficient manner, right? So I think as we learn more about what we can trust AI to do for us, and obviously, working very closely with, the legal teams, because we can't kind of unleash, AI kind of into the wild by itself, right? Because it can potentially do some things that we don't want it to do. So there have to be, guardrails in place that allow us to check and make sure that it's not going off the reservation, if you will. But, I think ultimately it's going to allow marketers to become more insightful, more effective, and more efficient. And I think ultimately what that means is the customer is going to have a much better experience, a more valuable experience with the brands. They're going to view brands as useful and reliable and something that they would then advocate for. And that's ultimately the pathway that you're looking to achieve, which is, you're trying to move that customer from just being a transactional customer to someone who becomes an advocate for your brand, and someone who feels that, they don't know how their life would continue on if your brand went away, right? And so, while that's sort of kind of an extreme, kind of a statement, ultimately that's what you want from your customers, is you want them to want you to be a part of their life.
Totally aligned. And as you mentioned that the features via AI are definitely going to come in the CRM. Then if you are leveraging it for the betterment of your subscribers and customer, and giving them better experience, that then definitely it sounds amazing. But then if you're not leveraging it in a manner which is not going to help your customers and subscribers, giving that experience, then there is no point of using that tool. One other area which brings me to the question. The next question is, the brands nowadays, right, are focusing more on converting customers, right, from prospects and subscribers,
Mhm.
and are less focused towards retaining them, right, or keeping them engaged. Now, you have been part of this CRM industry from quite a long time, right? And you would have definitely heard this commonly used term called loyalty programs, right? Which majority of the brands are using, whether they are using it in the right way or not, right? That is always debatable. But loyalty programs normally are game changers if you are leveraging it in the right way. But many times the customers or the brands are trying to use it just for the sake of using it as a discount system, just promoting discounts, sale, coupons, right? And are not trying to engage customers, not trying to educate customers how to leverage the brand in a better way. Uh, this is because we normally at Mavlers consider that loyalty programs are a good way to have connect with your customer, give them value addition rather than just promoting discounts. So, what are your three biggest reasons that loyalty program fails for many of the brands, and what should brands do instead in order to get the best out of their loyalty program?
Yeah, no. So, loyalty programs have been around for an awful long time. And, I think there are a number of traps that brands fall into when they pursue and implement a loyalty program. One of the first traps, I think, is that simply implementing and launching a loyalty program is sufficient, right? And that, while it takes a lot of work to get the thing in place, that, once you've done it, it's done, right? And so I'll call that sort of the set it and forget it kind of mindset. And today, the most successful loyalty programs evolve, right? And they evolve with the customer, and they provide interactions and experiences that are valuable to the customer, as opposed to just purely transactional. The second thing that I think is a real problem for loyalty programs is that they take their cues from other loyalty programs and largely try to emulate, or replicate what's in the marketplace. And that's a real problem, right? Because you lack differentiation, you lack, brand specific relevancy. You miss out on opportunities to really forge that deeper relationship with your customer, right? So, if, for example, you have a points-based loyalty program and that's the end of the day and that's the end of the game, you're a me too. And everybody else has kind of got that sort of table stakes. And so, I think the most successful brands kind of go above and beyond that. And they've learned from the interactions, because loyalty programs at the end of the day are really about an exchange of information. And, the customer is saying, hey, as a result of you providing this loyalty program, I'm willing for you to capture information about my behavior and how I interact with you. And I expect you to pay attention to it. And I expect you to provide me with value at the moments in time where it makes sense. Moments of surprise and delight are really engaging and opportunities for brands. The other thing that I think is probably a pitfall for loyalty programs is, and this is kind of one of those interesting dilemmas, right? But there are a handful of recognized platforms in the marketplace that most brands will adopt and leverage to manage their loyalty programs. And with any platform, with any technology, there are limitations. And oftentimes, what a brand views that would be most relevant for their customers can't be done or done in the way that they want with the platform provider that they are working with or choosing. And so they will oftentimes sort of say, well, we'll maybe get to that down the road, and they will, maybe sacrifice, the genuine intent, and the genuine experience that they're trying to deliver for what is capable now. And so that's why I think that you're seeing more and more, particularly the larger brands, the Starbucks of the world, et cetera, right? They're out there building a capability on a platform that they control and they own themselves, as opposed to, looking for something that's sort of off the shelf and out of the box that they maybe have to kind of work around. And so, the thing with the loyalty programs is ultimately, it's delivering meaningful value to the customer, for that promise, that exchange of information that is being provided. And then ultimately, I think, making sure that, and this is another thing that a lot of brands struggle with, is determining the incrementality of the program, right? Oftentimes, if you implement a base level, program, it might not deliver any incremental value, and all you might be doing is purely subsidizing, transactions that are already going to occur, right? So there's no benefit materially, from a financial perspective, oftentimes, if that's just what you're doing, right? So, with eyes on, the P&L, the CFOs are always looking at, what's the liability, what's the cost, what's the value being provided by this program. Well, I think marketers really need to become, kind of partners with the finance team, and they need to be measuring everything possible under the sun with respect to their rewards program. And it's incumbent upon them to demonstrate back to the organization how this is delivering incremental value, because these are significant investments, right, that organizations are making in these platforms and the markdowns and everything else. And there are liabilities that hang around on the books, in terms of points that are being accumulated and accrued over time, right? And so that has a real world implication to the financial viability and the financial health of an organization. So at the end of the day, your best in class, rewards programs are able to demonstrate in a very, very transparent and effective manner the value that they are in fact delivering to the organization. And again, that really comes back to demonstrating how they're delivering value to the customer, right? And how they're delivering value to the different customer segments that they have.
Yep. Ultimately, it boils down to the incremental value that the marketers are able to bring with the help of the loyalty programs and tools, but also making sure that we add value to both the customers and the different customer segments we are having for the brand. As we are talking about loyalty programs, right? Even though the brands have loyalty programs to retain customer, to engage customer, there are still chances that they will lose customers, right? And as a
Sure.
brand, no one wants to lose customers, right? But too many brands wait until it's too late for them, right? Without a proactive approach, they are stuck with higher acquisition cost, declining LTV or lifetime values, customers
Absolutely.
sleeping away without giving any intimation or warning. As you help brands build those churn models that can catch red flags or predict that, okay, there is a possibility that this set of customers or this set of segment are about to get churned, right, or about to get loose, right?
Mhm.
In your opinion, what are the three best ways brands can use predictive analytics to stop churn before it actually happens?
Yeah, so that's really a loaded statement, right? Because brands are going to lose customers, right? And some of which is to no fault of their own, right? People move, their needs change over time, and that's just a part of owning a brand and owning a business. But what you need to be focused on are the things that you can control, and the churn that occurs as a result of brands failing their customer and not continuing to remain relevant to them, right? So I think, the first step for how do you leverage predictive analytics to help reduce churn is first be an organization that is comfortable in using predictive analytics. And that's not just a matter of kind of doing this and saying, well, that's what I think is going to happen, right? There are real sophisticated or levels of sophistication in terms of empirical methodologies, statistical methodologies that allow us to determine in a probabilistic manner the likelihood of something occurring. And this can range from, forecasting sales out to 2 to 3 years, forecasting member growth, or recurring sales, or any subscriptions or whatever, right? So I think, the first piece is gaining competency and capabilities with respect to, predictive analytics. But then I think it's important to understand, where people are in their life cycle or their life stage with your brand, right? So, segmentation and understanding, who are my best customers, who is deviating from expected behaviors, right? So I might have high value customers who I would expect to be continuing to grow in their value path, but then all of a sudden they begin stagnating. Well, oftentimes that stagnation might be a leading indicator for, continuing declines that ultimately lead to defection. And so understanding how all of these different things kind of work together is very, very important. So, churn models, attrition models have been around for, decades and decades, right? The old school catalogers and the direct mail people back, 40, 50 years ago, they were very effective at predicting, who's likely to churn. Well, in my mind, you want to be ahead of that, right? Once someone's gone, it's really, really hard to get them back, right? And you can build models to say, well, who's likely to come back based on, different offers and communication and timing, et cetera. But, the real magic is being out in front of that and preventing people from getting to that point to where they start slipping. And as they start sliding down in value and they start sliding down in their engagement with the brand, that you want to intervene ahead of that and continue to keep them on a growth trajectory where you are continuing to develop that relationship with them. And you think about sort of, the life stage of organizations, whereas, they onboard, right? And then you have, the development of the relationship, the development of the value, and then you migrate them up to, these loyalists and evangelists. And then hopefully they maintain and stay there, right? And they're helping recruit people into the brand. And so all of your predictive analytics can help you understand each of these different stages or each of these different steps for each of these different segments. And, predictive analytics can actually be used to help segment your customers. And additionally, predictive analytics can help you identify amongst your customers what needs or need states are underserved or unmet in the marketplace that would be something that you as a brand can uniquely deliver value for. And so all of these things are, again, this is back to one of our, original questions, which is how do we future-proof, the brand, and what's the data strategy for allowing us to future-proof the brand? Well, it's continuing to deliver incremental value for our customers over time, and understanding deeply who your customers are, why they come to you, why they might leave you, and then how you can deliver new value for them in the future. And if you can continue to do that over time, you'll remain relevant and you'll have less need to worry about churn and defection, although you still want to be able to model that. And I think with today's capabilities, the platforms that are out there, with the advances in AI and people using, Python and R and other tools like that, I mean, people are becoming, what I would say is, the more sophisticated brands and the more sophisticated organizations who actually have disciplined and experienced data scientists on staff, or they have them as consultants working with them on behalf of their brand. Those are the people that are going to be truly successful over time. But again, you can throw data into any platform and it's going to kick something out eventually, right? And what you need to have is the experience to understand, based on the array of statistics that come from the model output, et cetera, whether or not you've got something that is reliable and useful for the organization to be effective, or you've just got something that is noise. And so there is sort of a yin and yang in terms of the technologies there to do some amazing stuff with immense amounts of data, but you still need people with the supercomputers between their ears who are scrutinizing the results and then help the organization figure out how best to adopt the insights and the results of these models to become more effective in their marketing pursuits and their relationships with their customers.
Normally, we try at Mavlers also, we try to recommend to the marketers that you try to understand the customer sentiments, right? Because though customers are happy with your product, they always try to give you some signals, right? Obviously, predictive analytics does make a big difference, but then reviewing their feedback, right? Reviewing those complaints, right, will give you some signals which will help you to understand that, okay, whether those set of customers are about to get churn or not. So
Absolutely.
being a marketer, email marketer, or a marketing automation or a CRM guy, make sure that you are having that pulse of your customer. Even though if it's happy or not happy, you should look at both the side of the lens, right? So that you can get the visibility on what to focus on, what areas you should focus on, that those churn get reduced. But yeah, definitely great advice you have shared. Even though we talk about loyalty programs and customers and everything, right? Everything at the end of the day for a brand boils down to driving revenue and maximizing the ROI, right? No matter what suggestions, what recommendations we give as a marketer, at the end of the day, they want to see the performance, and that performance is revenue, right? Now, a lot of companies are sitting on a gold mine of customer data, right? But aren't able to get anything meaningful out of it, right? That leads to a wasted marketing dollar because they've invested a huge amount of money on acquisition, right? It also boils down to missed revenue opportunities and customers who feel like just another name or email address in database, right? If you work with brands that change or that manages the CRM to drive real growth, right? Not just collecting email addresses or data. What are the top 2 or 3 brands can turn CRM into a revenue generating machine? So if you are recommending any brand market or a brand owner, what are the 2 or 3 ways you would recommend to the brand that can help them to turn their CRM into a revenue generating machine?
So one of the things that I think is important to keep in mind for all marketers is that all marketing is measurable. And if you are doing marketing and claiming that it's not measurable, then you're not doing marketing. You're just simply spending money. And eventually that's going to get clawed back by the senior leaders. And so, I think the marketing leader of today and the marketing leader of tomorrow is ultimately wearing a lot of hats simultaneously, right? They need to be very data savvy, right? They need to understand, what it is that we can do and need to be able to do and want to be able to do with the data that we are capturing. They also need to understand where they have blind spots potentially with respect to their data, and where they have gaps in data and data collection that they need to put plans in place to supplement and augment in order to become more insightful. But again, then they need to have this hat that is a almost like a data scientist hat to some extent. Now, I'm not saying that CMOs of tomorrow need to be data scientists, but they need to be thinking in terms of data and analytics and how that can help deliver incremental value for the organization. And again, that then comes back to the statement that I made earlier about, they need to have plans, and they need to have people around them who have plans to measure everything that they are doing and work in partnership with the finance teams to demonstrate consistently how they are delivering value over time. So what's important is making sure that, one, you've got, the right kinds of data, and that the data are clean and they're accurate, right? And that's a journey and a conversation in and of itself, right? We could spend an hour just talking about data governance and data hygiene, and how you enrich data in order to make it more effective. But let's just say that we've already checked that box. You need to have people who know how to leverage that information and then action on the insights that information is providing to you in order to deliver incremental value. But that needs to be, sort of mission one and objective one for marketers who are intentionally building brands, which is, how am I creating incremental value for my customer, which then in turn creates incremental value for our organization and for our brand that we can then see cascade down into profitability. So it's making sure that you've got the mechanisms in place to, capture all of that information. Now, that said, you really need to start, somewhere. And oftentimes it comes down to, with the CRM, database, it's understanding, who are my best customers, and, how do I market to them, or how do I communicate with them, or how do I interact with them in a compelling and relevant way that delivers incremental value. And I'm not just putting offers out in the marketplace or promotions out into the marketplace that are strictly an exchange of dollars as opposed to creating true value, right? Because it's, when you get into the world of discounting and that's sort of a race to the bottom. And that's not something that is sustainable for any organization long-term over time, right? Eventually, that's just going to create bankruptcy, right? So that's not, and the customer's not your best brand advocates, your best customers. They're not looking for that from you. They're looking for brands to actually make their lives better in some way, shape, or form. And so again, it's putting mechanisms and processes in place that allow you to understand the effectiveness of your marketing, measuring that which works, that which is not working, amplifying stuff that is working, pruning the things that aren't working, and then reallocating your marketing investments and dollars to those areas that are most effective. And there are classic examples of messaging that it's just like you're tone deaf, and you're sending something to somebody who absolutely does not need it. It's an irrelevant message, etc. Right? So I'm just trying to think of some examples. I'm a member of loyalty programs, and one is a pizza chain, and it never fails that whenever I buy a pizza from them, that I get a message from them either the same day or the next day about some new offer or some new pizza. It's like, I just bought a pizza from you. I probably don't need another pizza today, right? So it's being smart about what it is that you're offering. Or, for example, it's like when they say, buy 2 pizzas and get a third for free. And it's like, well, I only ever buy 1 pizza. Why would you? That's an irrelevant offer to me, right? And so it's about understanding their customers, understanding their needs, and making sure that the things that you're talking to them about are relevant to them, and aren't off-putting and aren't alienating, if you will, right? Because at some point you just get to the point where it's like, all right, these guys don't know anything about me. Even though I've exchanged an immense amount of information with them, I've done a lot of business with them over time, they still don't know me. They don't get who I am. and all they're doing is just blasting out information, and it's driving me nuts. And that kind of goes back to one of our earlier conversations about how do you prevent churn? Well, you stay relevant, right? And if you are irrelevant with your messaging, you're eventually going to be creating that churn.
Being relevant and being targeted is definitely something the brand should focus on. And the example which you gave about pizza, right? Making sure that you have the right segmentation, like whom to send what, right? Not sending buy two get three to someone who hasn't ordered in past because they are looking only for one pizza. Why they would go for buying two pizza instead of one? So that brings me to the next point, and the most important one, the segmentation, right?
Yeah.
Everyone again is aware of segmentation, but then brands are still doing it in the old way, right? Just doing it based on demographic, cutting it not further than demographic, and customers expect messaging that actually reflects how they think, how they behave on the website, on the email, right? Not just specific to age, location, gender, and all those stuff, right?
Sure.
So as you have helped brands shift from basic segmentation to more of advanced and predictive models that drive better results, what's the most effective way brands should update their segmentation strategies to keep up with the changing customer behavior?
Well, brands can still today become very, very effective marketers by using some of the old school principles and practices, right? Because there are a lot of organizations that still aren't doing that well. The blocking and tackling around basically RFMs or scoring or some easy clustering algorithms. There are a lot of organizations that still don't have that nailed down, and they can become much more effective just by doing that better and doing it in a more informed and intelligent manner. What I think differentiates sort of the best in class organizations from a segmentation perspective, and then those that are very, very effective in sort of the blocking and tackling, is what I go back to, sort of that blend of your first party information and that transactional history and the interaction that they have with your brand that you're capturing, and marrying that with your zero party information that you have the opportunity to gain from them. And by blending those two sources of information, you have the opportunity to garner some very, very rich insights. And then with some additional effort, where I really think, kind of the future is, and there are a handful of brands that are very, very effective at this right now today as well, which is really tapping into, and this goes back to, Harvard professor Clay Christensen and Stratogen founder Tony Olwick, understanding the jobs to be done. And, understanding that which your customers are ultimately trying to do, and what are their needs, and what needs in the marketplace are not served that you as an organization have the opportunity to deliver upon, or maybe needs that are underserved. And oftentimes it may not be a product deficiency or a service deficiency. It might simply be a messaging deficiency. It could be that you are already providing something in the marketplace that people really need. They just don't know that you've got it, or they don't know that what it is that you've got will do for them what they really want to have done. And so I think deeply understanding these need states of your customers is sort of that next level frontier for the brands that are truly going to be what I'd say the maybe the gorillas of tomorrow, not the unicorns. We're talking about, the gorillas that are just extremely proficient at marketing and building the brand and continually delivering, great new products and great new services and great new experiences. And ultimately, where I think we evolve, what I'll call the world of CRM, is maybe CRM becomes called something else, and it's maybe called CEO, and it's customer experience orchestration. And so once we really deeply understand what our customers need and what they need at different points in their life or different stages of their life, we as brands and we as marketers can become more effective at one, messaging that which is important and relevant to the customer at the time that it is important and relevant, and then two, creating new products or services, et cetera, that continue to deliver and keep pace with the brand, and or not keep pace with the brand, but keep pace with the customer as they evolve over time. And that requires a lot of work, and it doesn't come just from capturing behavioral and transactional information. It's understanding attitudinal information and how people engage with your brand and how they engage with other products, and where you've got opportunities to do things for them that will genuinely endear your brand to them and allow them to bring additional people to your franchise, because they ultimately become advocates for you and they'll defend you even when you make a misstep. And that's ultimately back to how do you future proof for your brand, which is, you build that trust over time. And when you do that, even if you make a slight misstep, you've got people that will advocate for you and they'll stand by you. But that's you might screw up, I'd say. But if you actually really, really mess up and it was something that should have been prevented and it should not have happened, that's when you will lose brand trust, and even your advocates will run away very, very quickly.
Great set of insight you shared about making sure that how you leverage the data further, and also making sure that segmentation, doing it in the right way, will definitely is going to give you a better result. This brings me to the last question of our session, right? And it's more of, I'm sure you would have heard about it a lot, that with the ever-changing geopolitical situation and the marketing scenario, right? Market budgets are under microscope, right? CMOs need to prove either the ROI or need to have a better check at the PNL, right? Because that now the ask has changed. They also need to invest in strategy. They also need to make sure that the business grow, and that's always a challenge for a CMO. As you help brands that find that balance between optimizing spend while also delivering strong performance, what would be your thoughts, or where do brands go wrong when it comes to maximizing marketing efficiency, and what should they do instead?
Yeah. And this is bread and butter for our organization, and it's something that we do day in and day out. First is balancing your short-term or mid-term measurement and returns with longer-term returns, right? It's very easy to do things in the short term to goose sales or goose transactions. But what you need to understand is the extent to which that is adversely affecting performance in the long run, right? So you need to balance both the short-term measurement and the long-term measurement. And that's, I think, one of the things that is often a misstep with many organizations today, is that they don't do both. And it's really important to understand if anything that you're doing in the short run, even though it might be a short-term win, is ultimately adversely affecting the brand in the long run. The second thing is, and I'm sure you can relate to this, and I'm sure you guys encounter this day in and day out, is people still struggle with attribution. And it, this is something that I, in my mind was, resolved 10 plus years ago, right? 15 years ago. Attribution was something that we figured out. And I still today encounter brands that are double dipping and triple dipping in terms of things that are getting credit for different stuff. And so one, they need to sort out attribution and adopt a methodology that is robust and defensible. And then kind of the hand in glove relationship with that, though, is really adopting a comprehensive process and approach for analyzing your marketing investments. And one of the things that we do that's not commonly done with a lot of other organizations is understanding the synergies between different marketing channels or marketing levers, right? So it's one thing to understand how linear TV is delivering and what the ROI on your TV investment is, but oftentimes what you find is that TV helps drive, and I'm using this just as an example. I'm not saying that you need to use TV or don't need to use TV, but this is just a real world example. Oftentimes TV will help increase the returns of other marketing channels. It might increase the return on your direct marketing that you're doing. It might increase the returns on your email marketing that you're doing. It might increase the returns on your digital display. Digital display might increase the returns on your out of home. And so it's understanding how these things work together, right? Because TV might deliver a 2x, ROI or ROS, but TV in combination with radio might give you a 2.3, right? And it's understanding how these things work together, right? So that's another thing that I think is a problem for marketers. But I think the biggest thing is not aggressively running to the measurement challenge. And marketers today need to be true partners with their CFOs, and they need to be kind of playing with all the cards face up on the table and saying, here's what this is delivering, here's what this is delivering, this isn't delivering, and I think we need to reallocate those dollars to this, or we can take those dollars out of this, right, and move it to something else in the organization that needs it right now. Maybe we need a new ERP, and we can use some of this money over the next 2 to 3 years to help fund some of that, right? Because ultimately that's going to help the experience down the road from a supply chain perspective, et cetera, right? So it's understanding kind of the big world picture of what it is that we are trying to achieve as an organization, and then how our role as marketers is helping to deliver, its component part to the overall brand.
Totally aligned. And as you mentioned, attribution is the game, right? If you don't attribute in the right way, you're not going to be able to measure the impact of those channels. So really great insights, Woody, starting from the data strategy to loyalty programs, to leveraging AI on the CRM side, and also focusing on driving revenue and increasing the ROI. So it was a really great session, and thanks for the valuable insights. I'm sure all the marketers who are going to leverage this session would be able to get good examples and good insights which they can leverage into their day-to-day marketing activities.
Again, it was a pleasure spending, I guess, this past 60 minutes with you, and look forward to conversations with you again down the road.
Thanks for the time, Woody. Have a great day.